So in this video, I am going to talk about the first essay in your curriculum in Unit 1. Unit 1 has the theme of intercultural communication, and the mode of writing for Unit 1 is argumentative mode of writing. And the first essay in Unit 1 is Where Do We Stand by Lisa Davis. We will read that essay. I do not want to teach that essay in the class. Rather, I will teach that essay here in this video. You watch it at the comfort of your home and come to class prepared for the essay. And in the class, we'll have discussion. So when we say reading an essay, the first thing comes reading, R-E-A-D, read. So the question is, how do we read? Let me talk about here about the Bloom's revised taxonomy. It's about learning, it's about thinking, it's about cognitive ability, how we learn. So there are 6 categories in Bloom's taxonomy, and these 6 categories are arranged in the order of increasing cognitive complexity. The word cognition means our ability to understand something, and cognitive complexity means the difficulty, the level of difficulty related to understand something. So there are 2 things that we do when we read any text in broad sense. One is we may scan a given text, S-C-A-N, scan, or we may skim a given text. When you scan a given text, you are reading it to find a particular specific information that may be in some paragraph. But when you skim a given text, you are not looking for particular specific information somewhere in the text. Rather, you are trying to get the overall impression of the text. So there are 2 ways of reading: scanning a text, looking for specific information, and skimming a text, getting the overall impression of the text. Now, besides scanning and skimming, when you consider Bloom's revised taxonomy of cognition, there are 6 levels, 6 categories. The first thing you do when you read something is you try to remember what you read. If you can't remember anything you read, you can't learn anything. So the first requirement of reading is that you remember what you read. This involves recalling the information from memory. You read something, then you close the textbook, and then you can tell someone about what you read right now. For example, you may recall facts, someone's name, date of birth, years. You may recall definitions given in an essay. You may recall concepts. For example, you may recall a thesis statement in an essay. A thesis is an idea which is so important that you can develop it in 1 or 2 pages. And you can also recall certain ideas, like, for example, in the essay we are going to read, Where Do We Stand? Lisa Davis talks about the concept of cultural continuum. I won't explain right now, but if you read Lisa Davis' essay, you should be able to recall and tell what is the concept of cultural continuum. So the first step in uh, Bloom's taxonomy is remembering facts, definitions, and concepts, being able to retell information from your memory. This is the easiest thing we can do as we read. First stage of reading. Then once you can remember, you can recall definitions and concepts and facts. The second step, which is a bit more complex than the first step, is the step of understanding. Here you understand the meaning of information. You interpret. For example, the essay may be saying something directly and it may have another indirect meaning, implied meaning. See the word imply, IMPLY. When you imply something, you don't say it directly, but people understand what you're trying to say. So that understanding is getting the meaning behind the lines, behind the word, behind the essay, behind the plot. For example, when Lisa Davis talks about how people use space in public places, what is Lisa Davis trying to say? Perhaps she is trying to say that if you work as a freelancer or if you work as a diplomat in international field, then you will be meeting with people from different cultures. And then in that situation, it's important for you to understand how people from different cultures use public space. Otherwise, there'll be uh, miscommunication when you have conversation with someone who doesn't belong to your culture. That may be what Lisa Davis is trying to imply. So if you understand that meaning, you understand Lisa Davis' essay. So understanding means extending some points from the essay to circumstances outside the essay. For example, as you read Lisa Davis' essay, Where Do We Stand about public use of space? Can you think about how Nepali people use space? Can you think how boys and girls like to sit in the classroom? Can you think about how Nepalese people stand in public places like shops or marketplaces? Can you think about how Nepalese people stand and occupy space in temples, for example? So, can you apply what Lisa Davis says about American context to Nepali context? If you can apply what Lisa Davis says about America and other cultures to Nepali culture, then you can extend the circumstances of the essay beyond the essay itself. So you should also be able to summarize and paraphrase if you understand. So how can you make sure that you understand an essay? So you can make sure that you can understand an essay if you can summarize the essay. You can make sure that you understand an essay if you can paraphrase the essay. When you summarize, you reduce 100 words into 10 words. When you paraphrase, you expand 10 words into 100 words. For example, if I say the word, let's say, if I have the word like uh, family planning, you paraphrase its meaning in 2 3 sentences. That is paraphrasing. Now, if I have a sentence like the methods that people use to control their birth, reduce the number of family members, and keep population under check. Then you say, oh, sir, you're talking about family planning. Now, this is summarizing because I said 3 sentences and you gave a single word for those 3 sentences. That is summarizing. Earlier, I gave one sentence and you said I gave one word like family planning, and you said three sentences explaining the meaning of that word. That is paraphrasing. So if you can paraphrase key terms from the essay, or if you can summarize facts, definitions, concepts from the essay, then you have understanding of the essay. If you can apply what the essay says to your life and your situation, then you have good understanding of the essay. The level of understanding is more complex and more challenging than the level of remembering. But without remembering, you can't understand. First, you have to remember what you read, then you can move on to understanding what you read. The third level of Bloom's taxonomy is applying. Now, as I said earlier, you read Lisa Davis' essay where she talks about how American diplomats, American businessmen who come to Muslim countries, Arabian countries, and other countries, Japan, India, China, how these American people need to be trained about how people from different cultures use space in public conversation so that they have uh, good communication experience, fruitful communication experience. Now, Lisa David talks about American people and their problems. Now, can you apply her ideas to Nepali people and their problems? Reading Lisa Davis' essay about how Saudi Arabians use space in public conversation, can you think about how Tamang people use public space in conversation? Reading Lisa Davis talk about how Japanese people interact while meeting Americans. Can you think about how Nepalese people from Tarai, Madhesh area interact while meeting people from hill areas? So can you apply Lisa Davis' ideas about how Americans interact in public spaces to understand how Nepalese people interact in public spaces? If you can apply, then you have the ability to apply the concepts that Lisa Davis talks about. That is the level of applying that is more challenging and more important. So when you can apply the ideas of one writer or one essay into different situations, then you can solve problems. For example, you read Lisa Davis' essay about how people use space, and then can you think how men use space and how women use space in our Nepalese society? How girls use space and how boys use space in Nepalese society. And then you understand, oh, why girls sit the way they sit in a public bus and why boys sit that way in public bus. So what you're doing, you are using Lisa Davis' ideas to solve a misunderstanding about how Nepalese boys and girls have confusion while traveling in public buses and how they have problems of miscommunication, misunderstanding while they sit in public buses, for example, because you apply Lisa Davis' ideas about how people use public space to understand how Nepalese boys and girls use public space. Okay, then number five is evaluating. Now, first you read and remembered, then you understood, then you applied. Now, analyzing. What is analyzing? This category involves breaking down information. So you read Lisa Davis' 18 paragraphs. Now you analyze her essay and see about what cultures she talks about. For example, Lisa Davis talks about Scandinavian cultures, Russian cultures, Caucasian cultures, Japanese cultures. She talks about Saudi Arabian cultures. She talks about Middle Eastern cultures. She talks about American cultures. She talks about Russian cultures, right? So you analyze one by one all the cultures that she talks about. You break down the information into separate categories. You make notes about all the cultures that she talks about. Then you will see that Lisa David talks about low contact cultures and high contact cultures. By what she means is that in a high contact cultures, people come very close when they talk. In a low contact culture, people maintain bigger distance when they talk in public places. And then you analyze the various parts of our essay, and then you try to understand how Lisa Davis builds up her thesis statement, and how Lisa Davis develops her argument, and how does she present her ideas. So if you can analyze like this essay, then you have this ability to make analysis of the essay. Once again, in analysis, you break down the information, and then you see component parts of a larger essay or poem or any text, and then you see the relationship among these parts of an essay, and then you compare one part of the essay with another part, and you see if there are similar patterns or differences in the essay, and you try to see how each part of the essay relates with another part. Then fifth stage is evaluating. Here you have, by now you have good understanding of the essay, and now you pass your judgment about the essay. You say where you agree to the writer, you say where you disagree to the writer, and you give reasons why you agree to the writer and why you disagree to the writer. You pass judgment about how important Lisa Davis' ideas are. You see if there is some problem in her argument. You see if there is some fault in her reasoning. You see if her argument is sound or unsound, right? And then you critique and you assess her argument, her ideas, and you judge the value of what she's saying. This is evaluation. This is more challenging. You cannot evaluate without learning how to analyze. And finally, when you can evaluate after analysis, then you create. For example, you read Lisa Davis' essay, and then you write another essay about how Nepalese people use space while shopping, how Nepalese people use space while participating in religious ceremony, how Nepalese people use space inside homes, how Nepalese people use space in the offices, how Nepalese people use space in college classrooms, for example. Now you are writing another essay about where we stand in Nepali culture after reading where Americans stand when they interact with other people. That is creating. It involves generating new ideas, making new products, using given information, designing new models, constructing new samples. So these are the six categories of Bloom's taxonomy. Now I will make this video short. I will close it here. And in part two, I will talk about the four levels of interacting. Maybe I will make about more than 5, 6 series in this video where I will cover the essay. So hope you watch this video, and then you move on to the next step, next video after this one. So assignment for this video is that at the end, now note the assignment. What do you understand by Bloom's revised taxonomy? What are the 6 categories of this taxonomy? Briefly explain each of these categories, and if possible, give example for each category from any lesson that you have read in your grade 11 and 12 courses. I repeat, what do you understand by Bloom's taxonomy? What are the 6 categories of this taxonomy? Explain each of these categories briefly, and also give example for each category, like remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating from the lessons that you read in English in grade 11 and 12. This is a question that you will answer in about, let's say, 5, 6 paragraphs. It's an essay type question. Now answer this question in English, and when you come to class, submit the essay to me. That's the assignment. I stop here, and now there will be part 2 of this video where I will talk about the 4 levels of interacting with the text.